Hi everyone, welcome back to Project No Buy. In today's Sunday Chats, this is a video addressing a viewer question about finding the perfect one, the search for that perfect thing. So I got a comment fairly recently, I think, and since making Sunday's video a comment question response, I think I will be able to make a much quicker turnaround between people asking certain questions and me giving feedback on it. So hopefully that's a good thing. I will refer to the comment here. The comment said, "Hi, have you done a video on the search for the perfect one? I feel like I'm always on the search for the perfect bag that will be everything I want and end my desire for any other bag. Same with pants. If you have a video on that kind of topic, I'd really like to watch it." Thank you. Here's the video on that topic. So I have fallen into this trap many a time. And even as recently as last year, it could have been said that I was on the search for the perfect pair of jeans. And I wasn't really actively searching for them at that time, but I had spent many years prior to that searching for this elusive perfect pair, or perfect for me pair, and also to the same extent, bags, before I discovered the one brand that I now collect or have a collection of, even if I'm not actively collecting. See this video up here that I recently released on that. I was also much more prone to buying to try things, first of all, and trying them in the efforts of finding that perfect thing. And so I don't really have any conscious memory of the moment that stopped for me. But I do think there are several things that fell into place that led to stopping and kind of eradicating this idea that there's something perfect out there if only I search for it and find it, and or that in itself is a satisfying activity, right? The search for the perfect one. And it can be satisfying at times, right? To be feeling like we're on this quest for this perfect thing for us. And at other times it can be frustrating when we realize that we don't actually want to be spending our time this way, buying things to try them, having to be in the cycle of resale or returning, or however it is that we cycle through things that aren't quite right and then updating it with a more perfect version. You know, when we realize we don't want to be doing that anymore, how do we get out of it? And maybe what I have to say on it, you know, my public reflections will help in that matter, maybe not. Remains to be seen. So it goes without saying maybe, but there doesn't exist the perfect one. You know, the perfect one does not exist. The perfect one for you even possibly doesn't exist either. The goalposts are always moving. What we deem attractive is ever changing as a society. Even bodies go in and out of trend. And so there's no such thing as achieving perfection, because in another year or 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, whatever is deemed as most desirable today will no longer be on that most desirable pedestal. And so we must detach ourselves from this idea of chasing being on that pedestal or anything that is currently on that pedestal of perfection, because it's not always going to be there. And we know this from looking at history. If we followed trends, we might have even experienced it firsthand. If we're old enough to have lived through the first iteration of skinny jeans, for example, and how they've gone out and apparently they're coming back in, and they may or may not continue to come back in. They will not be coming back in for me as my primary pants wear just because of comfort. And honestly, back in high school when I was wearing them, they were not the most comfortable either. And had they not been the primary form of pants, and people not wearing skinny jeans would be kind of ridiculed, I would not have worn them either. You know, if that wasn't the status quo, I would not have been wearing them, in other words. And the more that I know my own preferences and my own style, the less I care about what society deems is perfect right now. And the more I have strong personal values, right? Another mention to the body trends, I guess, not to trigger anybody, but I personally have, I guess, relatively strong values about not having surgeries or surgical procedures or substances injected into my body that I don't strictly need for medically necessary reasons. And I'm not trying to speak about things that I don't really know about here, even though that's essentially exactly what I'm doing. I know there are cases where people do get fillers and Botox and things for medically necessary reasons, and so that's not really what I'm referring to. But to keep up with societal trends of having kind of lip filler and Botoxed foreheads or whatever just to avoid naturally occurring wrinkles with age is against my personal set of values for me. Not for you, but for me. And so I don't really care if that's in line with your values or in line with somebody else's values. It's not going to make it line up better with my values. It's not something that I was able to be influenced on, even in the height of my days of influenceability, because that was one of the few values that I had as strong as I did, that I didn't want to do medical procedures, essentially, that were not medically necessary. Hopping in to give some additional context here, there was also a time where I had the option to undergo surgery to correct scoliosis of the spine, but it wasn't strictly medically necessary at that point, so I opted not to have it done, even though there were some people in my life who thought I should. And, you know, maybe it's not a medical procedure. Maybe there's some kind of definition discrepancy there. I'm not really here for that argument. You know, that's not the point of this video. But the point that I'm trying to make is that if we have strong values that we care about, nothing will be able to influence us into thinking that something is perfect for whatever reason. Now, there are certain metrics that we personally care about, right? Again, going back to the values. Something I value in terms of pants and bags, you know, let's just focus on the pants first, I guess, because these are kind of drastically different, purpose-fulfilling objects in our lives. Drastically different things that fulfill different purposes. The value of pants for me, like I said, I will never go back to skinny jeans or uncomfortable pants in general as my primary form of pants wear, because I'm just not about that life anymore. So if society says the perfect pair of pants is tight and uncomfortable, that's going to be a no for me all the time, every time. And I do have parameters around what constitutes acceptable for pants. They have to be long enough for me to be comfortable, right? I'm not accepting of slightly short inseams because I don't have to deal with that anymore now that I know some stores or some ways or some, you know, thrifted men's jeans, for example, work great. Ways to get longer inseams for my long leg type, I guess, my body type. And that's the thing, right? The perfect pair of pants for me is not objectively perfect for most other people out there, because most people do not need long inseams like that. And so I objectively know that this is not the perfect pair of pants. They are a perfect pair of pants as far as my inseam parameters. And, you know, if we can let go of that idea of perfect, I guess, is maybe part of the point here. They're not perfect. They just fit my most necessary parameters of being comfortable enough in the waist, long enough in the leg, and not too saggy in the back, right? That's kind of my boxes. Ideally, they'll have a baseline of quality as well, so that they're not going to wear out after a couple of washes. They can kind of be worn roughly, and ideally not fast fashion in whatever shape or form that takes. It could be a fast fashion brand purchased secondhand, or a more sustainable company, or what I hope to be a more sustainable company. I can only do my best as far as trying to find brands and companies that say they're not fast fashion and avoiding the known offenders of fast fashion. So those are kind of my parameters for a perfect pair of pants, or a perfectly functional pair of pants, in other words, is kind of what my goalpost looks like these days. A pair of pants that I can use and love until they're no longer functional as pants anymore. On that point, we are not perfect as humans. Nobody is. And so it's kind of a misguided idea that we even need the perfect thing. Something that's good enough, or that serves the purpose, or that is good for, you know, there will be different categories where we need perhaps the next level of thing. And for me, honestly, this might not be what everybody wants to hear, but when I started buying slightly nicer versions of things in my wardrobe, clothing in particular, that's when I was able to stop searching and stop kind of part of the revolving door of the resale. And I don't know if this is something I would advise necessarily, but maybe the focus here is on the search for quality, right? It doesn't have to be from a higher end brand. It doesn't have to be from a name brand or at a higher price point. But once you have, let's just say, pants of a certain quality, with certain design features, with certain stitching, with certain kind of material grade or whatever it might be, that is kind of head and shoulders above what you would get at, again, let's just say fast fashion, for example, what you would get if you just went to a store and got it off the rack, fast fashion, then you're not really as attracted to anything that's not as good as what you currently have, if that makes sense. And so it's not about finding the perfect pair. It's about finding a pair that's nice quality, that's pleasing to wear, that fits your parameters, that are non-negotiables. And I actually don't know that I can fully explain why I'm not as bothered by small imperfections with what I have now as I might have used to be. I actually do think that it was partly just a justification to shop, because there was a time when any little minor imperfection would make me look for a version of that thing without that issue, if that makes sense. So let's just say my black pants, for example. I have a couple of pairs of black concert pants, and I do like to have some to rotate through, but there are arguably small imperfections with each of the pairs that I currently have. One of the imperfections that's non-negotiable is size, right? So if something gets too small, too tight, too uncomfortable, I will need to replace it. But some of the other imperfections are things like there's some flaps on the back pockets of one of these pairs, and the waistband of one of the pairs is quite wide, and one of the other pairs is a little too slim through the knee, so it looks maybe a little bit more casual than the other pairs. But the thing is, they still serve the needs that I am using them for. They're still comfortable. The more casual pants are what I use for pit wear, less formal performances, I guess I should say. And the pants with flaps on the back, I just got over it. They're fine. They don't look bad. They're just kind of, maybe that's a detail that I wouldn't love in pants before, if I was repurchasing them. And as I've shared already this month, I did decide to repurchase my favorite version of the pants that I have, black pants, that were simply too small. But I didn't shop around. I didn't look for a better version where maybe the pleat was a certain, different way or more flattering or anything, because I know that these ones work and that they are perfect enough for me. And so I would rather have that than spend more time looking for a possibly better pair, spending possibly more money, looking for possibly better fabric, when these ones work just fine. Now, they are a relatively high-end pair of pants. They're over $100. I think they're $130 for a pair of black dress pants. So I would say that's not obscenely high, but it's also not cheap either. Could I possibly thrift a cheaper pair? Maybe. Maybe not in person though, and so the fit might not be exactly what I need. And so I'm not really willing to take the risk of, again, opening the revolving door of getting something not quite right when I already know that I like this one particular pair. I just need them in the larger size. I guess what I'm trying to say with those anecdotes is that if we are looking for an issue with something, we will always find it. And if we look for that marginal improvement somewhere, we will always find that too. Possibly at the expense of some other details, which will then become the marginal improvements that we can search for in the next thing. There will always be some further justification to rotate, to resell, and to rebuy. And I guess my criteria for whether that justification is legitimate is whether it's causing you physical discomfort. And the first plan of action or first question to ask, I think, is, do I even need to replace this thing at all? Would I miss it if it was gone? And if the question is resoundingly yes, right? Like if it's your primary pair of work pants and sitting down in them is now causing you physical discomfort, tolerating tight pants is no longer something that I'm comfortable doing or that I feel willing to subject myself to even on a no-buy year when I have theoretical other options, but my primary option is now not serving me anymore. And it's a question of, if somebody I was talking to was grappling with this themselves, if they had changed sizes, either gained or lost weight, and wanted to replace something in their wardrobe that they were currently using that just needed to be a different size, I would probably suggest that it was okay to do so, but not to add anything else, not to try any different style or pairs, that's not the time for exploration. It's the time for a straight up replacement, one for one. Ideally the exact same item if there's nothing really wrong with that item. And again, we're not here to look for perfect. We're here to look for the one that's the best in terms of functionality, longevity, and taking our specific parameters as far as what's important to us. Those few things that we absolutely cannot settle on in the things that we have and use. And for something like a bag, it might be functionality. It might be the case of being able to get in and out of it. It might be whether it has a secure zipper. It might be the size of the bag. It might be any number of things, right? But I guess in all of these examples, the examples that I'm giving are about the utility of the product, right? How the pants feel, how they fit as far as covering the things that need to be covered, right? They're long enough, they're loose enough to be comfortable. The bags are functional as far as having a closure and fitting what you need. The aesthetics part comes last in my mind now. And having different options just for the sake of aesthetics is not high on my priority list anymore. And I think that's what I would suggest for those of you who are trying to cut down on consuming, to maybe start pursuing as well, right? Having aesthetics go a little bit lower in the list of hierarchies, possible hierarchies. I shared that I do still care about aesthetics, but I act on that care a lot less these days, right? In that video where I talked about what's too expensive, I was sharing how I was dealing with this with my body lotion, and ultimately I decided to not care or not act on that one whim that I had of, oh, maybe I should use the container that looks nicer, but for what purpose? You know, it's not actually going to make me happier because I don't really care about it that much. And so I don't want to say that you shouldn't care about how your pants look or how your bag looks or how any of your clothes or any of your makeup or anything that you're searching for the perfect one looks. I guess maybe on that point, if you really are searching for the perfect one and the plan is to find the perfect one and never buy it again, then I think that's worth a wait, right? Because you probably have something that serves the purpose already. And if you are holding out for, you know, when it's something like home decor, that's what comes to mind for me right now. We did this with our current couch and pillows. We didn't have a couch for a while. We were operating with a small apartment couch and didn't have a large couch for the living room and didn't have throw pillows and the little ottoman thing or whatever. Because we had a specific design in mind and a specific kind of couch in mind and specific color or whatever. And so we waited until we could get the one that was perfect in our minds for what we wanted, what we were looking for. And we just didn't buy any alternatives. We just lived without a big couch, without the pillows, you know, things that we didn't really need since we already had a two-seater couch. And it's not imperative to have a large couch for your living space. One can live without that. And so for things like that, where maybe you don't need that other pair of pants or that bag or whatever it is, but you are entertaining the search for this perfect thing, maybe you just spin it out a little longer and just wait and go without until it either becomes a time that you truly need something in that category, or you do find what you've been looking for. Which, again, this might be contradictory advice because I also advocate not looking in the first place, not having anything up on this pedestal of perfection, and trying to break free from that mentality of thinking that anything is up there on that pedestal. And I guess regarding our couch and throw pillows example, it's not that we had any specific couch on that pedestal. We were able to go into a furniture store and pick a color of fabric that we wanted and a design. You know, they had a modular couch design, I guess, and so we were able to get what we wanted through that means. You know, we didn't have details that were must-haves all the way down to, you know, the design of the feet on the couch, or, you know, it wasn't that much of a quest for perfection perhaps in that way, but we were presented with options along this way to buy either cheaper couches or slightly kind of, you know, interim couches, but instead we did wait until we could afford the one that we would keep forever. And maybe that's what I'm saying here, is that if there is something that you could see yourself keeping and using forever and have kind of research to back this up, right? Of your preferences, of your tendencies, of your actual needs in life. I guess the other thing is, like with pants and with bags, are you actually going to need that for your whole life? Or would it change if your job changed, if your style changed, if your environment changed, if you moved? Regarding our couch, again, if we move houses, we're taking that thing with us. It'll work in any living room we have. We might have to set it up a slightly different way, but we will make it work. The color will work regardless of where we are. And the pillows will work on that couch, again, for eternity. And there's no reason that we see or can foresee having to replace that couch. Regarding even like my black work pants, unless I am not working any job ever, I foresee a use for those pants. And so, to me, replacing them even during a no-buy year is kind of an essential or an excusable offense, dare I say, because it's an item of clothing that I already have used regularly for the years that I've owned them and intend to continue using until I am no longer working, which is going to be maybe another 40 to 50 years. So I would consider that using up the piece of clothing to the best of my ability. But in general, I've accepted that I don't need to have the perfect clothing. I don't even need to look good all the time. And nor do I want to look like I care about looking good all the time either, if that makes sense. It's kind of a shift in values, like I was saying with the not following trends of the body or trends that require injecting or surgeries. I value different things now, or my values are shifting towards trying to be somebody that doesn't look like they care about having the perfect pants, if that makes sense. And that's not a judgment on people that look nicely put together or well turned out, or saying that I don't appreciate that at all, or saying that I have negative judgment for that either. You know, it's not necessarily the same to say that I want this to be my value and suggesting that you then judge others for it, right? Like, I don't think those both have to be true at the same time. So we're kind of operating on that. You know, this can be the value for me, but it doesn't have to be the value for how other people operate as far as how they dress themselves and think about how they acquire things. So there's no such thing as the perfect thing. Even if there was, I don't need to have the perfect thing in most categories in my life. And time will continue to march on. So even if I did find that perfect thing, it would not remain perfect forever. And in light of the videos I've been doing in March so far, I guess I would also question, is the thing you want actually embodied in the perfect version of the thing, right? Is it actually the perfect pants and the perfect bag? Or is it the feeling that you get when you think about said perfect pants or perfect bag? Is it looking like you have the perfect pants that you actually want? Is it the confidence that somebody carries themselves with when they know they have the pair of perfect pants or the perfect bag? What does that actually feel and look like? And can you attain that without a purchase or without the quest for these so-called perfect items? Because as I've said before, you cannot buy that feeling and you cannot buy that vibe. You will remain the person in the pants, in the outfit. You are actually the key component of the outfit. And so on some level, does that mean you're actually searching for some kind of perfection from yourself? Which we know is not really fair to expect of ourselves or anybody. Or rather, maybe we're all perfect just the way we are. So anyway, to recap my practical advice for if you feel like you're searching for that perfect thing. Number one, there's 3 options or possibilities here. 1, maybe you don't actually need it at all. So the first option is to have no version of it. So the perfect thing versus an okay thing versus no version of this thing. Like I discovered with perfume and lots of other beauty products that I bought because I thought I needed and may have formerly been in the search of the perfect one of. I think perfume was one of those things where I would smell different scents and entertain different ideas of which brands best represented me in terms of perfume. But now I've discovered that I just don't even need a perfume at all. This can apply to clothing items or different trends of things or tech gadgets, whatever it is. Maybe you don't actually need the thing at all. And now this doesn't translate perfectly in terms of pants or bags, things that you definitely need in order to not show up naked at work. So it can be something that's helpful to evaluate if you're thinking about acquiring more of these things, but it's not the end-all be-all for every situation under the sun, of course. The next practical piece of advice, option 2, is that you just use what you have already and accept its imperfections. So do the work on yourself to not mind the issues, the perceived issues with that item if they're within the realms of reason, or using what you have access to or have available to try to fix it to the best of your ability or the best of the ability of the skills of your friends or the tailors or whoever you have at your disposal in various ways, shapes, or forms. And then the third option is to go ahead and acquire that next best thing, the new perfect version of the thing, with the full knowledge that it can't ever be perfect, but that it has legitimate aspects that will improve its use value to you and in your life. But the thing is, after evaluating these 3 options, you must choose one and then stop the search. No rationalizing or justifying a continued search. And I can't tell you what to do, you know that. But this is just what I suggest in order of priority. If you absolutely feel like you must take action by buying something, first consider, do I need it at all? Can I settle for the one that I have and learn to accept what's wrong with it? And if I choose to buy something in this situation, is it replacing something in a way that's going to make it more useful for me in my life, make it more possible for me to use this item up to the end of its lifespan or my lifespan? And then of course there's that Japanese idea of wabi-sabi and how things get more beautiful through their use and all of these other cans of worms that I'm actually not going to open in this video because I'm going to leave you with that for today. I hope that was an okay exploration of the search for the perfect one. I hope it's tickled some ideas for you and provided some food for thought if it wasn't directly helpful anyway. But I will wrap this one up here today. Thank you so much for the comment and the question, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.